The woman's knuckles were nearly frozen when she finally found the strength to knock on the weathered oak door. Three small children huddled behind her skirts like scared rabbits, seeking shelter from the Montana blizzard that howled through the valley like a wounded beast. Vincent Yates had been pouring his third cup of coffee when the sound cut through the storm's rage. So faint he almost convinced himself it was just another trick of the wind battering his ranch house. But then it came again, more desperate this time, and he set down his tin cup with enough force to slosh the dark liquid across his table. The year was 1884, and visitors in weather like this meant trouble or death, sometimes both. He crossed his small front room in 4 long strides, his hand instinctively checking the revolver at his hip before he pulled open the door. The sight that greeted him stopped whatever harsh words he had been preparing to speak. A woman stood on his porch, her dark hair plastered to her face by snow and ice, her lips nearly blue with cold. But it was her eyes that caught him, green as spring grass and fierce, despite the exhaustion written in every line of her body. Behind her, 3 children clung together, the oldest maybe 8, the youngest barely more than a toddler in the arms of what looked like a girl of perhaps 6. "Please," the woman said, and her voice cracked with cold and desperation. "Please, we have been walking for hours." The wagon broke an axle 5 miles back, and the driver, he took the horses and left us. "These children, they cannot go any further." Vincent did not hesitate. Whatever his faults, and he knew he had plenty, leaving women and children to freeze was not among them. "Get inside," he said, stepping back and pulling the door wide. "All of you, quickly now." They stumbled in like a small avalanche of snow and frozen fabric, bringing the bitter cold with them. Vincent slammed the door against the storm and turned to survey his unexpected guests. The woman was already kneeling beside the children, her frozen fingers struggling with the buttons on their coats. He noticed she was shaking so badly she could barely manage the task. "Leave that," he said, his voice gruff. "Get yourselves by the fire. I will put more wood on." The woman looked up at him, and he saw gratitude warring with pride in her expression. She was pretty, he realized, even half frozen and covered in snow. More than pretty. But he pushed that thought aside as he moved to his stone fireplace and began building up the flames. Behind him, he heard the shuffle of small feet and the woman's soft murmurs as she guided the children toward the warmth. Once the fire was roaring proper, Vincent turned to face them. The children were huddled together on the braided rug before the hearth, their small hands stretched toward the flames. The woman had positioned herself slightly apart, as if ready to stand between him and them if needed. Smart woman, he thought. Cautious. Good. "You need to get out of those wet clothes," he said, and saw her stiffen. He held up a hand. "I have blankets. There is a room in the back, used to be my mother's. You can change there, wrap yourselves up. I will make something hot to drink and find food." "We have no money," the woman said, lifting her chin. "Not with us. But I can work. I can cook and clean and mend. I can repay your kindness." Vincent studied her for a long moment. "We can discuss payment after you are warm and fed. Right now, you are all close to frozen, and that toddler looks like he might cry himself sick if he gets any colder." As if on cue, the smallest child, a boy with red cheeks and wet eyes, let out a thin wail. The woman moved immediately, gathering him into her arms and making soothing sounds. Vincent felt something strange twist in his chest at the sight. "Come on then," he said, and led them through his small house to the room that had once belonged to his mother, dead these past 3 years. It still had her bed, her dresser, her things tucked away in drawers. He had not been able to bring himself to clear it out. "You can use whatever you need. I will bring blankets." He left them there and went to gather what he could. His house was not large, built by his father 40 years ago when this land was even wilder than it was now. 2 bedrooms, a main room that served as kitchen and living space, and a small addition out back that served as a washroom and storage. He lived alone, had for 3 years now since his mother passed and his father before her. The ranch was small but profitable enough, cattle and horses mostly, with some crops when the weather allowed. Vincent pulled blankets from his own room and carried them to the door of his mother's room, knocking softly. "Blankets here," he called. The door opened a crack, and a small hand reached out to take them. He caught a glimpse of the woman's face, still pale but with more color returning, before the door closed again. Back in the main room, he set about making coffee and heating water for tea, figuring the children might prefer something less bitter. He had beans and bacon, bread he had baked himself just 2 days ago, and some jam his neighbor had given him in trade for fixing her fence. It was not fancy, but it was food, and it was warm. When the woman emerged with the children 20 minutes later, they were all wrapped in blankets like small cloth mountains. The children's hair was damp but no longer dripping, and their faces had lost that frightening blue tinge. The woman had wrapped herself in his mother's old blue quilt, and her hair hung in dark waves around her shoulders. She was younger than he had first thought, probably not yet 25, though her eyes held the kind of weariness that came from hard living. "Sit," he said, gesturing to the table. "Food is nearly ready." They sat, the children quiet and wide-eyed, the woman watchful. Vincent dished out beans and bacon onto tin plates, set out bread and jam, poured coffee for the woman and weak tea with plenty of sugar for the children. He sat down across from them and watched as they fell on the food like they had not eaten in days. Maybe they had not. "My name is Vincent Yates," he said after they had taken the edge off their hunger. "This is my ranch, about 10 miles south of Wallace, Idaho." The woman swallowed her mouthful of bread and met his eyes. "I am Lily Barrett. These are Thomas, Mary, and Peter." She gestured to each child in turn. Thomas was the oldest, a thin boy with brown hair and serious eyes. Mary was the middle child, all big eyes and tangled blonde curls. Peter was the youngest, the red-headed toddler who was currently trying to stuff an entire piece of bread into his mouth. "They are orphans," Lily continued, her voice steady but soft. "I was bringing them from the orphanage in Helena to a new placement in Spokane. The church arranged it, paid for the wagon and driver. But when the axle broke and the storm got worse, the driver said he was not dying for a bunch of orphan brats and a spinster woman. He took the horses and rode off." Vincent felt anger kindle in his gut. "He left you in a blizzard." "He did." Lily's jaw tightened. "So we walked. I knew there had to be ranches along this road. I prayed we would find one before." She glanced at the children and did not finish the sentence. "You found one," Vincent said. He leaned back in his chair, studying them all. The children were eating more slowly now, their small bellies filling. Mary had fallen asleep against Thomas's shoulder, and Peter was nodding off in his blanket cocoon. "The storm is not letting up. You will stay here tonight, all of you. Tomorrow we will see about getting you to Wallace." "We cannot impose," Lily started, but Vincent cut her off with a sharp gesture. "You will stay," he said firmly. "This house needs you all, at least for tonight. I will not send anyone back out into that storm. The children can sleep in my mother's room. I will take the barn." "Absolutely not," Lily said, and there was steel in her voice that surprised him. "You will not sleep in the barn in your own house. I will make do." They stared at each other across the table, wills clashing in silence. Finally, Vincent sighed. "The children take the bed in my mother's room." "You can have my room. I will sleep out here by the fire. That is final." Lily looked like she wanted to argue more, but exhaustion was written in every line of her body. She nodded slowly. "Thank you for all of this. I know you do not know us and we could be anyone." "You are a woman with 3 children who were left to freeze," Vincent said bluntly. "That is all I need to know right now." He helped her get the children settled in his mother's room, Mary and Peter sharing the bed while Thomas insisted he could sleep on the floor with blankets. The boy had that stubborn set to his jaw that Vincent recognized from his own reflection. Once the children were down, Lily followed Vincent as he carried more blankets to his own room. "I will be fine out there," she said quietly, standing in the doorway. "You have done so much already." "Sleep," Vincent told her. "You look like you are about to fall over. Tomorrow will come soon enough and we can figure out what comes next." She hesitated, then nodded. "Mr. Yates, Vincent," he interrupted. "Vincent," she amended, and something in the way she said his name made that strange feeling twist in his chest again. "Thank you. You saved our lives tonight." He did not know what to say to that, so he just nodded and left, closing the door behind him. He made up a bed on the floor by the fire, using his coat as extra padding and a blanket for covering. The storm continued to rage outside, wind howling like wolves, but inside his small house, it was warm and quiet save for the crackle of the fire. Vincent lay awake for a long time, staring at the ceiling beams he had helped his father install when he was 14. His life had been simple until a few hours ago. He woke up, tended his animals, worked his land, went to sleep. He talked to his neighbors when necessary, went to Wallace for supplies once a month, and otherwise kept to himself. He was 28 years old and had long since accepted that he would probably spend his life alone. Women in these parts were scarce, and the few available ones had no interest in a quiet rancher who lived miles from town and had little to his name but land and livestock. But now there was a woman sleeping in his bed, and 3 children in his mother's room, and something in his carefully ordered life had shifted in a way he could not quite name. He finally fell asleep as the storm began to ease, dreaming of green eyes and dark hair and small hands reaching out for help. Vincent woke to the smell of coffee and bacon. For a confused moment, he thought he had dreamed the entire night, that his mother was still alive and cooking breakfast like she used to. But then he opened his eyes and saw Lily standing at his stove, her dark hair braided down her back, wearing what looked like one of his mother's old dresses. It fit her surprisingly well. "You are awake," she said, glancing over her shoulder. "I hope you do not mind. I found the dress in the wardrobe and my own clothes are still damp." "It is fine," Vincent said, sitting up and running a hand through his hair. He felt strangely exposed, having someone see him sleep rumpled and unprepared. "You did not have to cook." "I told you I could work," Lily said, turning back to the stove. "Besides, the children will be up soon and they will be hungry." As if summoned, the door to his mother's room opened and Thomas emerged, followed by Mary clutching a rag doll that had belonged to Vincent's mother decades ago. Peter was still sleeping, Lily said, worn out from the ordeal. Breakfast was a surprisingly comfortable affair. The children were less frightened in the morning light, though still quiet and watchful. Thomas asked Vincent about the ranch, and Vincent found himself explaining about the cattle and horses, about how his father had built this place from nothing. The boy listened with keen interest, asking smart questions that showed a quick mind. After breakfast, Vincent went out to check on his animals. The storm had passed, leaving behind nearly 2 feet of snow and a world transformed into white silence. His barn was solid, built to withstand Montana winters, and his livestock were fine if a bit restless from being cooped up. He fed and watered them, talking softly to the horses as he worked. When he returned to the house, He found Lily had cleaned up from breakfast and was mending a tear in Thomas's coat by the fire. The children were playing a quiet game with some old wooden blocks Vincent had carved as a boy. It was a strangely domestic scene, and it stirred something in him that felt both pleasant and unsettling. "The road will be impassable for at least a day, maybe 2, he said, brushing snow from his coat. "That much snow and the drifts will be bad. Even on horseback it would be dangerous." Lily's hands stilled on the coat. "We cannot impose on you for days." "You are not imposing," Vincent said, and realized he meant it. "Like I said last night, this house needs you all. It has been too quiet here for too long." She looked up at him, and he saw something complicated pass through her expression. "That is a kind thing to say, but we are strangers, Mr. Yates." "Vincent," she corrected when he gave her a look. "You do not owe us anything." "Maybe not," he agreed. "But you are here and you need help, and I can provide it. That is enough." Over the next 2 days, an unexpected rhythm developed in Vincent's house. Lily proved to be an excellent cook, far better than Vincent's rough bachelor fare. She made bread that was soft and golden, stews that filled the house with warm smells, and even managed to create a dried apple pie from his meager supplies that tasted like heaven. She cleaned without being asked, organized his chaotic kitchen, and mended clothes he had been meaning to fix for months. The children began to relax and show their true personalities. Thomas was indeed as smart as Vincent had thought, curious about everything and eager to help with chores. Vincent taught him how to properly curry the horses, how to check the cattle for signs of illness, how to stack firewood so it would not topple. The boy soaked it all up like parched earth drinking rain. Mary was shy but sweet, following Lily everywhere and helping with whatever tasks her small hands could manage. She had a soft voice when she spoke, which was not often, but when she smiled it lit up her whole face. Peter was a typical 2-year-old, into everything and requiring constant watching, but he had a laugh that was pure joy and a way of looking at Vincent with complete trust that made his chest feel tight. And Lily was a mystery Vincent found himself wanting to solve. She worked hard, harder than necessary, as if trying to prove her worth. But in the quiet moments, he would catch her staring out the window with a distant look in her eyes, or see her expression go soft when she watched the children play. She was careful with him, polite and grateful, but always maintaining a certain distance. On the 3rd morning, Vincent decided the road would be passable enough to make it to Wallace. He said as much over breakfast and saw Lily's face do something complicated. "Of course," she said. "We have taken enough of your hospitality. I will need to contact the church, arrange for new transport to Spokane." "About that," Vincent said, setting down his coffee cup. "I have been thinking. The children are settled here, comfortable. They have been through enough without dragging them on another long journey. And you," he paused, choosing his words carefully. "You said you can cook and clean and mend. I could use someone like that here. The ranch is small, but it makes enough to support more than just me." Lily stared at him. "Are you offering me a job?" "I am offering you and the children a place to stay," Vincent said. "At least through the winter. Come spring, if you want to move on, I will help arrange it. But right now you need a place and I need help. It makes sense." "People will talk," Lily said quietly. An unmarried woman living with an unmarried man. Vincent had thought of that. "We will go into Wallace today. I will introduce you as my cousin from back east, here to help me get the place organized. It is close enough to the truth. And if it bothers people, well, that is their problem." Lily looked at the children, who were watching the exchange with wide eyes. Thomas looked hopeful, Mary was gripping her doll tight, and Peter was obliviously eating his eggs. "I need to think about this," she said finally. "Think while we ride to Wallace," Vincent said. You will need supplies regardless, and I need to pick up feed. We can talk on the way." An hour later, they were loading into Vincent's wagon, the children bundled in blankets in the back while Lily sat up front beside Vincent. The road was rough and slow going, but the horses were strong and steady. The winter sun was bright on the snow, almost blinding, and the air was so cold it hurt to breathe. "Why are you doing this?" Lily asked after they had been riding for nearly 20 minutes in silence. "You do not know anything about me. I could be a thief or worse." Vincent kept his eyes on the road. "Are you?" "No." "Then that is all I need to know. It cannot be that simple." "Why not?" Vincent glanced at her. "You need help, I can provide it, and in return you help me. It is a fair trade." Lily was quiet for a long moment. "The truth is, I have nowhere else to go. The church orphanage was where I grew up. When I turned 18, they kept me on to help with the children, gave me room and board in exchange for my work. But the orphanage is closing. Not enough money, they said. The children are being placed wherever they can go. These three were heading to Spokane because there is a couple there willing to take them. But her voice faltered. I have nothing. No family, no skills beyond caring for children and keeping house. I was bringing them to Spokane, and then I was going to have to figure out what to do with myself. Find work as a maid somewhere, maybe, or a cook if I was lucky. Vincent felt his anger at the driver who abandoned them flare anew. So that bastard did not just leave you to freeze. He left you with nowhere to go. He did not know that, Lily said, but there was no conviction in her voice. He should have cared either way. Vincent was quiet for a moment, then said carefully, You love those children. It was not a question, but Lily answered anyway. I do. I have cared for them since they came to the orphanage. Thomas's parents died of fever 3 years ago. Mary and Peter's mother died in childbirth, and their father could not care for them. They have already lost so much. I wanted them to go to a good home, to have a real family. And what about you? Vincent asked. What do you want? Lily turned to look at him, and he felt the weight of her gaze. I want to matter to someone. I want to have a place that is mine. I want to not be alone. She said it simply, without self-pity, just stating facts. But wanting and getting are different things. Sometimes they are the same thing, Vincent said. Sometimes you just have to be brave enough to reach for what you want. Wallace was busy despite the snow, people out doing their business and visiting the various shops and establishments. Vincent drove the wagon straight to the general store, helped Lily and the children down, and led them inside. The proprietor, a round man named George Wilkins, greeted Vincent with surprise. Vincent Yates, as I live and breathe, thought you would be snowed in for another week at least. Had reason to come to town, Vincent said. George, this is my cousin Lily Barrett, just arrived from back east. Lily, this is George Wilkins, knows everything and everyone in Wallace. George's eyebrows went up, but he was too polite to question the sudden appearance of a cousin Vincent had never mentioned. Pleasure to meet you, Miss Barrett. And who are these fine children? Thomas, Mary, and Peter, Lily said, slipping into the role Vincent had created with surprising ease. They are in my care. Well, welcome to Wallace, George said. What can I do for you folks today? They spent the next hour gathering supplies. Lily picked out fabric for new clothes for the children, needles and thread, food staples, and sundries for the house. Vincent ordered his feed and arranged for it to be delivered when the roads were better. As they shopped, several townspeople stopped to meet the newcomer, and each time Vincent repeated his story about Lily being his cousin. Some looked skeptical, but most seemed to accept it at face value. As they were loading the wagon, a woman approached. She was perhaps 40, handsome in a stern way, and wore the respectable clothes of a successful merchant's wife. Mr. Yates, she said, and her voice was cool. Mrs. Patterson, Vincent replied, equally cool. The woman looked at Lily with sharp eyes. "I heard you have a female cousin staying with you." "I do," Vincent said. "Is there a problem?" "Only that I have known you for 5 years and never heard mention of any cousin." Mrs. Patterson smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. "It seems odd, is all." Lily stepped forward before Vincent could respond. "Family connections can be complicated, Mrs. Patterson. My mother and Vincent's mother were cousins but had a falling out years ago. We only recently reconnected through letters after both our mothers passed. When I mentioned I was struggling back east, Vincent kindly offered me and the children a place to stay." She said it smoothly, adding details that made the story more believable. Mrs. Patterson looked taken aback. "I see. Well, welcome to Wallace, then." As she walked away, Vincent leaned close to Lily and murmured, "Quick thinking. I learned a long time ago that the best way to handle busybodies is to give them so much detail they cannot argue without seeming rude," Lily said with a small smile. On the ride back, the children fell asleep in the back of the wagon, worn out from the excitement of town. Lily sat quietly beside Vincent, her hands folded in her lap. After a while she said, "I will stay, through the winter as you offered, if you are certain." Vincent felt something settle in his chest, a feeling he could not quite name, but that felt right. "I am certain." "Then we have an agreement," Lily said. "I will keep your house and cook your meals and help with whatever you need. And in return, you will provide shelter and food for me and the children." "Agreed," Vincent said. They rode the rest of the way in comfortable silence, and when they arrived back at the ranch, it felt to Vincent like they were coming home rather than returning to a house. The days began to blend into weeks, and a routine established itself that felt as natural as breathing. Vincent would wake before dawn, start the fire, and head out to tend the animals. By the time he returned for breakfast, Lily would have food ready and the children up and dressed. Thomas began accompanying Vincent on his morning chores, eager to learn everything about ranch work. The boy had a natural way with animals and a strong back despite his young age. After breakfast, Vincent would work on whatever the ranch needed while Lily handled the house. She proved to be remarkably resourceful, making do with what little Vincent had and somehow creating comfort where there had only been bare functionality before. She sewed curtains for the windows from some old fabric she found in his mother's things. She organized his chaotic collection of tools and supplies. She planted herb seeds in pots on the windowsill, saying come spring she would start a proper garden. Mary helped Lily with her chores, learning to cook and clean and mend. She was a quick learner and seemed to blossom under Lily's patient instruction. Peter was too young to help much, but he toddled around spreading chaos and joy in equal measure. Vincent found himself looking forward to coming in from work and being greeted by Peter's delighted squeal of Vinny, which was as close as the toddler could get to his name. Evenings were spent around the fire. Vincent taught Thomas to play chess using a set his father had carved. Lily would sew while Mary played with her doll. Peter would fall asleep in whoever's lap was available, his red curls soft against their hands. Sometimes Lily would read aloud from the few books Vincent owned, her voice bringing the words to life in a way he had never experienced reading to himself. On Sundays, they would hitch up the wagon and go to church in Wallace. The townspeople gradually seemed to accept the story of Lily being Vincent's cousin, though he still caught speculative looks from some of the unmarried women and disapproving frowns from others like Mrs. Patterson. But Lily held her head high and was friendly without being overly familiar, and slowly she began to make her own connections in the community. One particularly cold evening in early February, after the children had been put to bed, Vincent and Lily sat by the fire talking quietly. It had become their habit, these late evening conversations. They would discuss the ranch, the children, their pasts. Vincent had learned that Lily's mother had died when she was born, and her father had left her at the orphanage when she was 3, never to return. She had no memory of him beyond a vague impression of rough hands and tobacco smell. "Do you ever resent him?" Vincent asked. "Your father for leaving you?" Lily considered the question. "I used to. When I was young, I would imagine he was going to come back for me, that he had some grand reason for leaving me there. But as I got older, I realized he just did not want me, and you cannot make someone want you." She looked at him, firelight dancing in her green eyes. "What about you? Do you have siblings? Other family?" "It was just me and my parents," Vincent said. "My mother had several miscarriages after me. I think it broke something in her, though she never said. My father was a hard man, fair but not warm. He taught me to work, to provide, to be responsible. But I do not think he ever taught me how to be happy." "Are you happy?" Lily asked softly. Vincent looked at her, at the way the firelight caught in her hair, at the gentle curve of her mouth. "I am happier now than I have been in a long time," he said honestly. Something passed between them in that moment, an understanding that went beyond words. But then Lily looked away and the moment passed. "I should go to bed," she said, standing. "Morning comes early." "Lily," Vincent said, and she paused, "I am glad you stayed." She smiled at him, warm and genuine. "So am I." After she had gone to her room, Vincent sat by the fire for a long time, thinking. Somewhere in the past month, this arrangement had stopped being about convenience and started being about something more. He cared about these people who had stumbled into his life during a blizzard. Cared about Thomas's eager questions, and Mary's shy smiles and Peter's joyful laugh. And Lily, he cared about Lily in a way that was different, complicated, and terrifyingly strong. February gave way to March, and with it came the first hints of spring. The snow began to melt, revealing the brown earth beneath. Vincent started planning for planting season, discussing with Thomas what crops would do best in which fields. The boy had taken to ranch work like he was born to it, and Vincent found himself thinking about the future in ways he never had before. One afternoon, Vincent came in from repairing fence to find Lily sitting at the table with papers spread before her, and tears streaming down her face. He was at her side in an instant, kneeling beside her chair. "What happened? Are you hurt?" The children are fine," Lily said, wiping at her eyes. "They are napping. I am sorry she gestured helplessly at the papers. "I received a letter from the church. The couple in Spokane, the ones who were going to take Thomas, Mary, and Peter, they still want them. They have arranged for transport next month." Vincent felt his heart drop into his stomach. "You are leaving?" "I have to," Lily said miserably. "These children were supposed to go to a family. They are supposed to have a real home, not be stuck living in limbo with me and pretending to be your cousin." "They do have a real home," Vincent said fiercely. "Here, with us." Lily looked at him, her eyes red and swimming with tears. "Us." Vincent realized what he had said and decided to follow it to its natural conclusion. "Yes, us. Lily, these past 2 months have been the best of my life. This house was empty before you came. It was just a place where I existed. But now it is a home. You made it that way. You and the children. I do not want you to leave." "Vincent, let me finish," he said. "I know this is sudden. I know we have only known each other a short time, but I have come to care for you deeply, for all of you. The thought of you leaving, of going to Spokane or anywhere else, it makes me realize that somewhere along the way I fell in love with you." Lily's breath caught. "You love me." "I do," Vincent said simply. "I love your strength and your kindness, and the way you sing while you cook even though you think no one can hear you. I love how you are with the children, how you have given them stability and affection when they needed it most. I love that you fixed my house and organized my life and made everything better just by being here." "I am an orphan with nothing," Lily whispered. "No family, no dowry, no prospects. You are Lily Barrett, and you are everything I never knew I needed," Vincent countered. He took her hands in his, rough rancher's hands holding her smaller ones. "Marry me. Not as some arrangement or convenience, but because I love you and I want to spend my life with you. We can adopt the children legally, make them ours in every way. Give them the family they deserve and the home they need." Lily was crying again, but this time she was smiling too. "You would do that. Take on 3 children who are not your blood. They already feel like mine," Vincent said honestly. "Thomas is like the son I never thought I would have. Mary is sweet and kind and deserves every good thing. And Peter," he laughed a little. "Peter calls me Vinny and climbs into my lap like he belongs there, and maybe he does. Maybe you all do." "Yes," Lily said, and her voice was strong despite the tears. "Yes, I will marry you. Because I love you too. I have been so afraid to admit it, even to myself. I thought it was foolish to fall in love with you when I am just supposed to be your hired help, your fake cousin. But I could not help it. You are good and kind, and you saved us when we had no one else. You gave us a home and made us feel like we mattered." Vincent stood and pulled her to her feet, and then they were kissing, tentative at first and then deeper, with all the feeling they had been holding back. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathless and grinning like fools. "We should tell the children," Lily said. "We should," Vincent agreed. "But first," he kissed her again, softer this time, savoring it. That evening they gathered the children and explained what was happening. Thomas looked shocked, then delighted. "So we get to stay, forever." "Forever," Vincent confirmed. "If you want to." "I know I am not your real father, you are real enough," Thomas interrupted, and there was something fierce in his young voice. "You have taught me more in 2 months than I learned in years at the orphanage. You treat me like I matter. That makes you real to me." Mary climbed into Lily's lap and hugged her tight. "Can I call you Mama?" she asked shyly. Lily's eyes filled with tears again. "I would like that very much." Peter, not fully understanding but sensing the emotion in the room, toddled over to Vincent and raised his arms. "Up, Vinny!" Vincent picked him up, and the toddler immediately rested his head on Vincent's shoulder with perfect trust. "I think that settles it," Vincent said, his voice rough with emotion. They were married 3 weeks later in the small church in Wallace. Lily wore a dress that the women of the town had helped her make, simple but beautiful in cream-colored fabric with lace at the collar. Vincent wore his only suit, brushed clean and pressed carefully. The children stood with them, Thomas and Mary as witnesses, Peter squirming in the front pew with one of the church ladies. The adoption papers had been drawn up by the town lawyer, who had been surprised but pleased by their request. "Good for you," he had said gruffly. "Too many children in this world need homes. You are doing a good thing." After the ceremony, there was a small celebration at the ranch. Several neighbors came, bringing food and well wishes. George Wilkins brought a bottle of whiskey that he and Vincent shared on the porch while watching the sun set over the mountains. Even Mrs. Patterson came, though she still looked slightly suspicious of the whole arrangement. "You certainly moved quickly," she said to Lily at one point. "When you know something is right, why wait?" Lily responded calmly, and Mrs. Patterson had no answer to that. That night, after the guests had left and the children were asleep, Vincent and Lily finally had their wedding night. It was sweet and tender and everything it should be. 2 people who had found each other against all odds, learning the new language of shared intimacy. Afterward, lying in Vincent's arms in what was now their shared bed, Lily traced patterns on his chest and said softly, "I never believed in fairy tales, but this feels like one." If it is a fairy tale, it is one we are writing ourselves, Vincent said. And I intend for it to have a very happy ending. Spring turned to summer, and the ranch flourished under their combined efforts. Thomas proved to be an invaluable help as they planted crops and worked with the cattle and horses. Vincent taught him to ride properly, and the boy took to it with natural grace. Mary started her garden with Lily, and soon they had vegetables growing in neat rows behind the house. Peter followed everyone around, getting into mischief and making them all laugh. Lily bloomed in ways that went beyond physical beauty, though Vincent thought she grew more lovely every day. She had a confidence now that had not been there when she first knocked on his door. She was mistress of her own home, mother to 3 children she adored, wife to a man who loved her deeply. She organized social gatherings with other ranch wives, traded recipes and gossip, and became a valued member of the Wallace community. Vincent found that married life suited him far better than he ever anticipated. He loved waking up next to Lily, loved the domestic routines they had created, loved the sound of children's laughter filling his house. The ranch prospered too, as if sensing the happiness within the household. His cattle brought good prices at market, his crops yielded well, and he was able to make improvements to the property he had been putting off for years. In late August, Lily came to him with news that made his heart soar. She was expecting a baby, due early the following spring. They shared the news with the children that evening, and Thomas looked proud while Mary immediately started planning what the baby would need. Peter, not quite understanding, just kept patting Lily's stomach and saying baby with great satisfaction. The pregnancy was not easy. Lily suffered from severe morning sickness and exhaustion that worried Vincent. But she insisted she was fine, that this was normal, and the local doctor confirmed that while uncomfortable, everything was progressing as it should. Vincent hovered and fussed, until Lily finally told him firmly that she was not made of glass, and he needed to stop treating her like she would break. "I am carrying your child and raising 3 others," she told him with mock severity. "I think I can handle daily life." But Vincent still found excuses to check on her throughout the day, and she would smile and shake her head at his obvious concern. Winter came again, and with it the anniversary of the night Lily and the children had knocked on his door. Vincent marked the occasion by gathering everyone in front of the fire and telling them the story of that night from his perspective. "I was alone," he said, holding Lily's hand while the children listened raptly. "I had been alone for so long I forgot what it was like to have people I cared about. And then there was this knocking on my door, and I opened it, and there you all were, frozen and desperate and needing help. And I remember thinking that this house was too quiet, too empty. I remember saying that this house needs you all. I did not know then how true that was. I did not know that you would fill every empty corner with love and laughter and life, but you did, and I thank God every day for that blizzard that brought you to me." Lily was crying, but they were happy tears. "You saved us," she said, "all of us. You gave us a home and a family and everything we needed." "We saved each other," Vincent corrected gently. "I was just as lost as you were. I just did not know it. In March, when the snow was beginning to melt and the first hints of spring were showing, Lily went into labor. It was long and difficult, and Vincent paced the floor while the midwife and doctor worked. Thomas kept the younger children occupied outside, though he was clearly worried. Finally, after nearly 20 hours, a baby's cry pierced the air. Vincent was allowed into the room to find Lily exhausted but smiling, holding a tiny bundle. "A son," she said softly. "We have a son." Vincent looked down at the tiny red face, the small fists waving, and felt his heart expand in ways he did not know were possible. "He is perfect." They named him Samuel Vincent Yates, Samuel for Vincent's father and Vincent to carry on the name. The children were delighted with their new brother. Thomas declared he would teach Samuel everything about ranching when he was old enough. Mary wanted to hold him constantly, practicing the gentle cradling Lily taught her. Peter was fascinated by the tiny baby but also a little jealous of the attention, so they made sure to give him extra cuddles and assurance that he was still loved. The ranch continued to prosper over the next several years. Thomas grew into a strapping young man who worked alongside Vincent as a true partner in running the ranch. At 16, he was already being eyed by several young ladies in Wallace, though he seemed oblivious to their attention. Mary was 12, and as sweet-natured as ever, helping Lily with the house and the younger children, and showing a talent for drawing that surprised everyone. Peter was 7 and full of energy, constantly running and climbing and exploring every inch of the ranch. Samuel was 4, a serious child with his father's dark hair and his mother's green eyes. He followed Thomas everywhere, idolizing his older brother and trying to copy everything he did. And there was also little Eleanor, born 2 years after Samuel, who had Lily's dark hair and Vincent's stubborn jaw. She was 2 and already showing signs of having a will of iron. The house had been expanded to accommodate the growing family. Vincent had added 2 more bedrooms and a larger kitchen, and Lily had decorated it all with the care of someone who truly loved her home. There were curtains in every window, rugs on the floors, and drawings by the children pinned to the walls. It was messy and loud and chaotic and absolutely perfect. One evening in early summer, Vincent stood on his porch watching the sun set over his land. Thomas was bringing in the last of the cattle for the evening. Mary was in the garden with Eleanor, showing her the vegetables they had planted. Peter and Samuel were playing some elaborate game that involved a lot of running and shouting. And Lily was in the kitchen, probably starting on dinner, singing softly to herself like she always did. Vincent thought back to that bitter winter night 7 years ago when a desperate knocking had changed his life. He thought about the lonely man he had been, going through the motions of living without really being alive. And he thought about what he had now, a wife he loved more than he thought possible to love another person, children who filled his days with purpose and joy, and a home that was truly a home in every sense of the word. Lily came out to join him, wiping her hands on her apron. She slipped her arm through his and leaned against his shoulder, both of them watching their family in comfortable silence. "What are you thinking about?" she asked eventually. "About how lucky I am," Vincent said. "About how close I came to missing all of this." "If you had not opened that door," Lily started, but Vincent stopped her with a gentle kiss. "But I did," he said. "I opened the door and you were there and everything changed. Sometimes I wonder what my life would have been like if that storm had not come, if that driver had not abandoned you, if you had found some other ranch before mine." "I think we were meant to find each other," Lily said. "I think all of it, the storm and the fear and the desperation, it was all leading us to exactly where we needed to be, to each other. To this." She gestured at the scene before them, at their children and their land and their life. Vincent pulled her close, breathing in the familiar scent of her hair, feeling the solid reality of her in his arms. "You are probably right," he said. "You usually are." Lily laughed and swatted his arm playfully. "Took you long enough to admit that." "Mama, Papa," Mary called from the garden. "Come see. The tomatoes are finally turning red." They walked down together to admire the garden, and soon all the children were gathered around, talking and laughing and vying for attention. Vincent stood in the middle of his family, his arm around his wife, and felt a contentment so deep, it was almost overwhelming. That night, After the children were all in bed and the house was quiet, Vincent and Lily sat on their porch in the rocking chairs Thomas had built as a gift for their 5th anniversary. The stars were brilliant overhead, the night air was soft and warm, and somewhere in the distance a coyote called to its pack. "Tell me again," Lily said softly, "about the night we met." It had become a ritual between them, this retelling. Vincent obliged, describing the storm and the knock, and the moment he opened the door to find her standing there with 3 frightened children. He talked about his first thoughts, his instant decision to help, the way something in his chest had shifted the moment he looked into her eyes. "I knew," he said. "Even then, some part of me knew that everything was about to change. I was so scared," Lily admitted. "I thought we were going to die out there in the snow, and then you opened the door and you were so big and rough-looking, and I thought maybe you would turn us away or worse. But then you said those words. 'This house needs you all,'" they said together and then laughed. "I meant it," Vincent said. "Even not knowing you, I could feel how empty my house was, how empty I was, and you filled it all up with light and love and life." "We filled each other up," Lily corrected. She reached over and took his hand. "You gave me something I never thought I would have. A home. A family. Someone who loves me not because they have to, but because they choose to." "I will always choose you," Vincent said. "Every day for the rest of my life I will choose you." They sat in peaceful silence for a while, holding hands and listening to the night sounds. Eventually, Lily said, "Do you ever think about having more children?" Vincent looked at her in surprise. "Are you?" "No," Lily said quickly, then smiled. "At least, I do not think so, but I would not be opposed to it if it happened. Our family started with 3 children who needed a home. Maybe there are others who need the same thing we gave Thomas and Mary and Peter." Vincent considered that. "You want to take in more orphans?" "I want to help children who need help," Lily said. "The way you helped us. We have room now and resources. We could make a difference." "We are already raising 5 children," Vincent pointed out, but his tone was thoughtful rather than dismissive. "We are," Lily agreed. "And we are doing well at it. The older ones are growing up, needing us less. Mary will probably marry in a few years. Thomas too, eventually. There will be room for others who need what we can give." Vincent thought about that night 7 years ago, about the decision he had made to open his door and let in strangers. That decision had given him everything he valued most in his life. How could he say no to giving that same chance to other children? "We will talk to the church," he said finally. "See if there are children who need placement. But Lily, we are not young anymore. I am 35, you are 31. Chasing after little ones gets harder every year. Then it is a good thing we have older ones to help," Lily said with a smile. Over the next year, they did indeed take in 2 more children. First came a girl of 10 named Sarah, whose parents had died in a fire. She was quiet and traumatized, prone to nightmares and moments of panic. But Lily was patient with her, and slowly, Sarah began to open up. Mary took her under her wing, treating her like a younger sister. And gradually, Sarah's smiles came more frequently. Then came a boy of 5 named Daniel, who had been found wandering alone after his family's wagon was attacked by bandits. He did not speak for the first 2 months, just watched everything with big, solemn eyes. But Peter took it upon himself to befriend the younger boy, including him in games and adventures, and eventually Daniel's voice returned along with the spark of childhood. The house was full to bursting now, loud and chaotic and wonderfully alive. Meals were major productions requiring 2 tables pushed together. Laundry was an endless task. Someone was always needing something, wanting attention, getting into mischief. And Vincent and Lily loved every exhausting minute of it. Thomas turned 18 that fall and announced his intention to marry Alice Patterson, the daughter of Mrs. Patterson, who had once been so suspicious of Lily. The young woman was sweet and kind, nothing like her mother's stern demeanor, and she clearly adored Thomas. Vincent gave them his blessing and helped Thomas build a small house on the far corner of the ranch property. The wedding was a grand affair by Wallace standards, with half the town in attendance. Vincent walked Thomas down the aisle since the boy had no other father and found himself fighting back tears of pride. This young man who had come to him as a thin, serious 8-year-old was now a man in his own right, starting his own family, ready to take on the world. "You raised him well," Lily whispered as they watched Thomas and Alice exchange vows. "We raised him well," Vincent corrected. Mary married 2 years later at 17, to a young blacksmith named Joseph Carter who had recently set up shop in Wallace. It was a love match, pure and simple, and Vincent gave her away with mixed feelings of joy and sadness. His little Mary, who had been so shy and quiet, now a confident young woman starting her own life. Peter showed no signs of wanting to marry anytime soon. Too busy working the ranch and courting every pretty girl in 3 counties without settling on anyone in particular. But he was happy and healthy and kind, and that was all Vincent could ask for. Samuel was 14 now, as serious as ever but with a dry wit that caught people off guard. He had declared his intention to go to college back east, to study agriculture and modern ranching techniques, so he could help make the family ranch even more successful. Vincent was proud of his ambition, even as he dreaded the idea of his son so far away. Eleanor was 12, and showing every sign of being as stubborn and independent as her mother. She could ride as well as any of the boys, shoot straight, and argued her point with the fervor of a lawyer. She declared regularly that she was never getting married, that she was going to run a ranch of her own someday. Lily just smiled and said they would see. Sarah had bloomed into a lovely young woman of 16, with a talent for music that had been nurtured by the piano Vincent had bought from a family leaving the territory. She played at church services and social gatherings, bringing joy to the community. Daniel, now 13, was quiet but steady, good with animals and showing signs of becoming an excellent horseman. On a cool October evening, as Vincent approached his 43rd birthday, he and Lily sat on their porch watching the sun set over their land. It had become their evening ritual, this quiet time together after the chaos of the day. 22 years, Lily said softly. 22 years since I knocked on your door in that blizzard. Vincent did the math and realized she was right. 22 years, he echoed. Sometimes it feels like yesterday. Sometimes it feels like forever. Do you have any regrets? Lily asked. Vincent looked at her, at the gray that was starting to thread through her dark hair, at the lines at the corners of her eyes from years of smiling and laughter. She was 53 now, and to him she was more beautiful than ever. Not a single one, he said firmly. You. Only that we did not have more time, Lily said. But then, I suppose everyone feels that way when they are happy. They sat in comfortable silence as the sky turned from orange to purple to deep blue. Stars began to appear, the same stars that had been there that night 22 years ago when everything changed. Our children are doing well, Vincent said after a while. Thomas and Alice just had their second baby. Mary is expecting her first. Even the younger ones are growing up strong and healthy. We did good, Lily. We did, she agreed. We took 7 children who had nothing and gave them everything. We gave each other everything. That is not a bad legacy. It is a damn fine legacy, Vincent said, and Lily laughed at his language but did not scold him for it. More years passed, bringing changes and growth and the inevitable march of time. Samuel went off to college as planned, writing long letters about his studies and the strange modern world of the East Coast. He came back after 4 years with a degree and a wife, a smart young woman named Catherine who adapted to ranch life with impressive resilience. Eleanor shocked no one by refusing several marriage proposals, and instead partnering with Samuel to run the ranch operations with increasing skill. Vincent gladly let them take over more and more of the day-to-day work, his body reminding him with increasing frequency that he was not a young man anymore. Sarah married a traveling musician who promised to take her to San Francisco and show her the world. Vincent worried about her leaving with a man they barely knew, but Lily calmed his fears. "She knows her own heart," Lily said, "and she knows she has a home here if she ever needs it." Daniel stayed on at the ranch, content with the quiet life of working with horses and cattle. He married a local girl named Emma, and they built a house not far from Thomas's place. The ranch was becoming a true family compound, multiple generations living and working side by side. Peter, to everyone's surprise including his own, fell hard for a widow with 3 children of her own. He married her and instantly became a father figure to her brood, proving that he had learned his lessons about love and family well from Vincent and Lily. Vincent was 61 when he had his first serious health scare, a pain in his chest that scared him nearly as much as it scared Lily. The doctor said his heart was tired, that he needed to slow down and let others do the heavy work. It was hard advice to follow for a man who had been active his whole life, but Lily enforced it with gentle firmness. "You have earned rest," she told him. "Let Samuel and Eleanor and the others handle things. You have taught them well. Trust them." So Vincent learned to step back, to advise rather than do, to watch rather than lead. It was difficult at first, but he found surprising peace in it. He spent more time with Lily, taking walks around their property, sitting on the porch watching the sunset, playing with grandchildren who were starting to appear with increasing frequency. On a warm summer evening when Vincent was 65 and Lily 61, they gathered the entire family for a special dinner. Children and grandchildren and even a few great-grandchildren filled the expanded house and spilled out onto the porch and yard. It was loud and chaotic and perfect. After dinner, Vincent stood and called for quiet. "I wanted everyone here tonight because I have some things to say. I am getting old and a man never knows how much time he has left, so I want to make sure you all know what you mean to me." He looked around at all the faces, some that looked like him, some like Lily, some that had no blood relation but were family nonetheless. 50 years ago I was alone. I had land and livestock and a house, but I was alone. I thought that was how my life would be, and I had made peace with it. But then a blizzard came, and a woman knocked on my door with 3 children, and everything changed. He reached for Lily's hand, and she stood beside him, her eyes already glistening with tears. This woman changed my life. She filled my empty house with love and laughter and life. She gave me children when I thought I would never have them. She made me a better man than I ever thought I could be. And 50 years later, I love her more than I did the day we married, and I did not think that was possible. Lily was crying openly now, and so were several others. Vincent cleared his throat and continued. "As for all of you children, you are my legacy, not this land or this house, but you. Every one of you. Whether you came to us through birth or adoption, you are mine and I am proud of you. You took the love we gave you and multiplied it, spreading it to your own children and to the world. That is all any parent can hope for." "We have built something here," Vincent said, his voice growing stronger. "More than a ranch, more than a house. We have built a family that spans generations. We have created a place where love matters more than blood, where kindness trumps everything else. And I hope that long after I am gone, you will remember what started it all, a simple decision to open a door on a snowy night and say this house needs you all. There was not a dry eye in the place. Thomas stood and raised his glass. To Vincent and Lily Yates, the best parents anyone could ask for, may we all be half as good as they are. To Vincent and Lily, the family chorused, and the sound of it echoed across the valley. Vincent lived to be 72, passing peacefully in his sleep one winter night with Lily beside him. The entire town of Wallace came to his funeral, along with family from as far away as San Francisco and Boston. He was laid to rest on a hill overlooking his ranch, with a simple headstone that read, "Vincent Yates, he opened his door and changed the world." Lily lived 3 more years, surrounded by her children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. She never fully recovered from losing Vincent, but she faced her remaining time with the same grace and strength she had shown her whole life. When she passed at 75, she was buried beside Vincent, her headstone reading, "Lily Yates, she knocked, he answered. Love followed." The ranch stayed in the family, passed down through generations. The story of how it all started, of a blizzard and a desperate knock and a cowboy who said, "This house needs you all," became family legend, told and retold to each new generation. And every winter when the first big snow came, the family would gather on the porch of that same house, now much expanded but still recognizable, and remember the night that changed everything. Thomas's great-granddaughter, herself named Lily, would stand on that porch more than 100 years after that fateful night and tell her own children about their ancestors. "They loved each other," she would say, "through everything, through hard times and good times, through joy and sorrow. They loved each other and they loved this family. And that love is what has sustained us all these years." And in the end, that was the truest thing. Vincent and Lily Yates had taken a moment of crisis and turned it into a lifetime of love. They had opened their home and their hearts and created something that lasted beyond their years. They proved that family is not just about blood, but about choice and commitment, and the simple act of caring for others. The ranch prospered under each new generation, but they never forgot the values instilled by Vincent and Lily. Doors were always open to those who needed help. Orphaned or struggling children were welcomed and loved. Kindness was valued above wealth, and character mattered more than pedigree. The Yates family became known throughout Montana as good people, fair dealers, and loyal friends. Eleanor lived to be 96, the last of the original 7 children to pass. On her deathbed, surrounded by more descendants than she could count, she told the story one last time of that night when she was not yet born but 3 frightened children, and a brave young woman had knocked on a door in a snowstorm. "Your great-great-grandfather said something that night," she told them, her voice thin but clear. "He said this house needs you all, and he was right. The house did need them, just as they needed the house, just as we all need each other. That is the lesson of our family. We need each other. We take care of each other. We never turn away someone who needs help, because you never know when a knock on your door might change your life forever." And so the legacy continued, generation after generation, built on the foundation of one cowboy's decision to open his door on a snowy night and welcome in strangers who became his family. It was a simple act of kindness that rippled outward through time, touching hundreds of lives and creating a family tree that spread across the country. But at its heart, it was always about 2 people, Vincent and Lily, who found each other when they both needed finding, who built a life together from nothing but determination and love, and who proved that sometimes the best families are the ones you choose for yourself. The old house still stands, preserved by the family as a reminder of where it all began. Every year on the anniversary of that snowy night, the family gathers there for a celebration. They eat Lily's recipes, tell Vincent's stories, and remember what it means to open your heart to others. And if you listen carefully on a quiet winter night, standing on that old porch with the stars bright overhead and the valley spread below, you might almost hear echoes of the past children's laughter. A woman singing while she cooks, a man's deep voice reading aloud by the fire. The sounds of a family built on love and maintained through generations by the simple principle of caring for each other. That is the story of Vincent Yates and Lily Barrett, of three orphan children and the cowboy who said, "This house needs you all." It is a story about finding home in unexpected places, about love that grows from kindness, about family that is chosen rather than given. It is a story that began with a desperate knock on a door during a blizzard and grew into a legacy that outlasted them all. And in the end, it is a story about what really matters in life, not wealth or status or blood relations, but the connections we forge with each other, the love we give and receive, and the homes we build together, one decision, one kindness, one open door at a time.